Hey, Yetta, how about we schedule this Friday night for fear, and then maybe Saturday morning for anxiety, and then next Wednesday for worry? How's that?
I don't normally do that, and I don't think I want to do that.
You don't want to schedule in fear and anxiety?
I don't.
Moving forward with the Dekker Team. Moving forward together with the Dekker Team.
So we're excited to welcome you to another episode of Life's Inside Track, where we share techniques, thoughts, tools, and tips that we all need, we all deserve to turn our house into home where our families thrive and we live the best life possible. And I'm Yetta Dekker.
And I'm Ken Dekker.
And we have been thinking a lot about and discovering a lot about, it feels like sometimes we schedule fear, anxiety, and worry into our calendar, and that it disrupts us. Like, it's absurd to think that we would do that, but when we don't schedule faith, it disrupts our vision and our plan for what lies ahead.
So it's kind of like failing to plan is planning to fail.
Yes.
So failing to put faith into our life is planning to put fear into our life.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah, and it sounds weird when you say schedule time for it, right?
Right. It sounds like, who would do that, Yetta? Who would do that, Ken?
But it shows up when we don't fill our schedule with faith.
Right.
Or our life or our year.
Right.
In the coming year. How much faith do you want to put into your life, or how much fear do you want to put into your life?
Right. Because if we don't schedule the things that move us in faith toward our vision and our calling and our purpose, then we really often will succumb to the things associated to fear and anxiety and worry and those things that derail us, is what we've experienced, right?
Yeah. And, before we knew Christ, our planning for the year would have all kinds of things in it, like want to be healthier, want to eat better, want more wealth, or how much wealth we wanted that year, or, whether we would earn more money, we'd work harder, we'd work less, what would happen during the year. Those are the sort of things we planned.
Right.
And it's not that we don't still plan some of those things, but now we're planning, how do we put faith into our schedule? Almost first.
Well, what do you mean almost
faith and
first?
Fun are the two things we put into our schedule first.
Right. And
then growth.
Yeah. And
then work.
Well, yeah. Well, do you not think family and relationship come before work? Or does work go in first and then we fit the family and relation?
Well, fun goes into there. Fun to me is vacation. It's family. It's
right.
We schedule that so it doesn't get overrun. And do we schedule the things that build our faith? Schedule that first.
Right. And one of the things we've learned is that a lot of our faith building schedule is very habitual. Like, those are more the rituals. So when you said, what do we put in first? Do we put in time away and those kinds of things? Or do you put in faith first? And I would say faith goes in first, because it's in the fabric of our everyday schedule. And when it comes to the big blocks when we're going to be away, yes, the fun ones go in first, then go in. Well, and sometimes the work, with you being president of the real estate board and president-elect and past president over the next years and the past years, we've had to put your work conferences in sometimes first because they're unmovable. And then we put in those things for our family and ourselves that allow us to keep moving forward toward the vision.
Right. And so it may sound funny to you to schedule in faith. How do you schedule in faith? And so we're going to talk about 3 concrete things that you can schedule in that will build your faith. And faith, I love to say, is the antidote to fear. How do you get rid of fear? Faith and action alleviate fear.
Absolutely. And so spending time every morning at 5 o'clock, and when I say every morning, we're probably on the 80-20 rule. If we're vacationing or Ken's traveling or I'm traveling, if we're not in the same place, we don't follow the routine or the ritual quite to the same degree. And yet daily, our habitual behavior now for over 30 years is to spend time with the Lord at about 5:00. It used to be that we would be on a learning program listening to something like Focus on the Family. And now it's more, we have our devotionals, we have our Bible reading, we have our scriptures, we have our year-over-year journal or our current journal. And so we're spending about 90 minutes with the Lord, hearing what he has to say. And I get the privilege of waking up most days with a thought that I need to go run into the tranquility room that seems to have come from him that I get to write down.
Yeah. So it's that faith is built through this item, which you just talked about was routine, but it's time with the Lord. It's time in prayer. It's time reading his word. It's time understanding his message to us, his promises in the word, right? Then number 2 is, what will we read this year? What books, what Bible verses will we read? You know, some years we read the New Testament over and over and over again. Some years we read the Bible chronologically, you're right through. Some years just the way it is through. Some years we focus, like this year, we've been focusing on the Psalms and Proverbs.
Right.
And sometimes we just do Proverbs over and over and over again for 6 months. But it's having scheduled what we're going to do in our reading.
Right. And then the other thing we will read is, one of the ones I love right now is Andy Andrews. Mm-hmm. So reading a lot of his books, which have a faith undertone and an underpinning to them and a message and a story, and yet they're still engaging and light and fun. Mm-hmm. So that's not my hardcore in my tranquility room time, but that's more, what am I reading throughout the day? What am I watching? Like, what am I exposing myself to in terms of media? What am I taking in? That's number 2. It either builds my faith or it tears it down. Yep.
And the number 1 item that has affected us from time to time is conferences. Big conferences, you know, where it's either Band of Brothers, which I got involved with, Hearts of Beauty, all kinds of different conferences that you schedule in advance that build your faith. And one of those times at Band of Brothers, I remember it so clearly, I was speaking on the father wound. And the father wound is how, as a father, we wound our children, and also as a child, understanding that a father will wound you. And
with no intent.
No, sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just you ignored something. You missed they asked you to play catch and you said, no, I need to get my meeting ready, or whatever it is. There's times where a child is wounded by their father not being where they need to be. And so I was speaking at that conference, and Ryan, our son, was in the conference, and I apologized for the things that happened. And when he came forward at the end of the talk, we hugged for, felt like an eternity. It was minutes, a great embrace. And that embrace affected hundreds of men with their relationship, and gave them the courage and the faith that the relationship can be healed if they go back and connect their kids. Yeah. So we're just so grateful. We're grateful that we can be partners in this journey of building wealth and wisdom.
Moving forward with the Dekker Team. Moving forward together with